razzle dazzle, we're the best. No, the courts aren't on your side, but they're not on the tenant side either. Jen, like, you are independently wealthy when you are naked. I am over treating property management the same as real estate sales. I guess I'll lead the witness. I think it's freaking scammy. Welcome to Hold It with PM Jen, the show for real estate investors who buy and hold forever and ever. Amen. Hey holders, thanks for coming back to your favorite show and mine, Hold It with PM Jen, the show for investors who buy and hold forever and ever. Amen. So today we're finishing up our 3-episode series on hiring, retaining, holding accountable remote team members in your investment business. So we've already had 2 great episodes. This last one, I'm so looking forward to sharing with you. This is a real look behind the curtain. We're going to get to have a chat and interview with 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐸. She is my executive assistant. She is based in the Philippines, and she has been with me now for just about 6 years. She has held a lot of titles here in my business, and I could not trust or depend on her more. And when I talk to local investors about the level of confidence I have in my remote team members, I keep saying to them, let's have you meet them. And so this is my way of having you meet my remote team members, and hopefully you'll be just as impressed by them as I am every day. So Lindsay's going to be sharing her viewpoint, her point of view as a Filipino woman working for an American company, and I'll say very candidly, doing amazing at it. I think she is somebody who sets the standard for the kind of work we can get from folks over there. Don't forget our friend Jay Berube at BetterWho. That's betterhwo.com. He's the one who will help you. His company will help you recruit and retain the remote team member that's going to change your business. Get $500 off their direct placement fee with the code PMGen. That is PMJEN. And if you're wondering how you're going to pay that remote team member when the time comes, how are we going to convert our USD to Filipino pesos or whatever? Well, you're going to use wise.com, WISE.com. Use the link in the information on this podcast because you'll get to make a fee-free first transfer with that deal. All right. Now, I hope you'll enjoy my conversation with Lindsay. Welcome, Lindsay.
Hi.
Hi. Where are you in the world, my dear?
I'm in the Philippines, specifically in Cavite. It's probably 30 minutes from the metro.
Right. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your career and your life so far. How old are you? Who do you live with? Just what is your life like there a little bit?
Sure. Well, I am already in my early 30s. Let's just leave it at that. I have 2 kids, and then I started working from home probably 7 years ago. So before One Focus, Um, I was in Dubai. I was working admin stuff, and then I went home to get married, and then to start a family, and then I worked um, for an agency. It's also work from home, and then before I was hired here at One Focus.
Right. And when you first joined us in January of 2020, your role was for me, my executive assistant. I had never had an
Yes.
assistant before. And back then I was much more involved in the business, but over the years, you've accumulated some titles. You're known by quite a few titles right now, right? So Lindsay serves as my executive assistant. And in those roles, the things that I still do in the business, things like payroll, things like social media, those are actually mostly being executed by Lindsay. And so Lindsay carries the titles of HR manager because she plays a huge role in our recruiting efforts, doing initial phone interviews and screenings, managing that process, and then onboarding them. And then in the role of HR manager, she's doing a lot with our payroll and benefits and communication to the team. That has been huge and allows us to do well at those tasks, even though I personally am not so good at them. And additionally, she's our social media manager. So she is running all of the accounts, not only for One Focus, our property management company, but for me, the Hold It accounts. Then she's also our sales onboarding assistant, because the one role I still have here at One Focus is I'm the business development manager. So if you're a potential new client with our company, I'm speaking with you, I'm visiting your property, I'm making the stabilization plan. But beyond that, once you say, yes, I'd love to be a client of One Focus's, you're maybe working with Lindsay a bit more, doing the details, getting the paperwork ready, and making sure you're ready for kickoff with the team. And so Lindsay and I work hand in hand. We can't be off at the same time, or nothing's really happening. So she's super integral, and she is probably among the longest tenured employees here. I think Jen Rippey is our longest, and Lindsay,
Yes.
you're probably our second longest,
Yes, I think so, yeah.
along with Mika.
I
And
think also Kristen.
oh, Kristen's up there
Yeah,
too in that 6-7 year
Kristen
range.
was yeah, Kristen was few months before me. So yeah.
Okay. So you and Nika occupy in a tie, because you and Nika, who is our leasing assistant, who also is from the Philippines, um, started on the same day. And I'm so proud of those first three we brought in. We still, almost 6 years later, have two of you working for us. And the other one wasn't a bad hire either. They worked for us for a couple of years, and that was a great relationship. So I want to go back to when you made the decision to work from home, working remotely. What's attractive about that for you and for other people like you who do this kind of work? Because for Americans, we can't imagine
Yeah.
working from like our spare room in the middle of the night, because you're working graveyard shift your time, because you're working real time for us. Like, what's appealing about that?
Well, at first, when I decided to do work from home, it's not really something that I decided that I wanted to do. It's more of like it is what I had to do for the family because I just gave birth at that time. So I have a little baby, and Marlo and I, my husband Marlo, we were kind of having a discussion whether should I be back in the corporate world. And so we thought maybe I can try doing a work from home job, and then and so that worked for us. And so yeah, also I like that I am working graveyard because then when everybody's sleeping and no distractions, I kinda can have my focus and peace and doing the my work.
Yeah. It seems like it works really well for your life at this point in time. Like
Yeah.
you and your family have balanced this really well. And I think all of our employees have. Was there anything uniquely appealing about real estate companies, like about American companies
Um,
or real estate companies? Did you have any thoughts about that?
um, it was just in line with my first job because I did real estate sales in the Philippines. It was actually my first job. And then I did that for a year or so. I was very young then. I didn't really know about how real estate works, but I had a little bit of a background when I did work for a local real estate company here in the Philippines. And then after that, I also worked for a real estate by investment in Dubai. So I am processing like paperwork for our clients to be citizen in Caribbean countries. So what they do is that they buy a piece of land, a real estate, and then they process their paper for them to be a citizen of that country. And so I have a little bit of a background already before I came here at One Focus.
A little bit of a comfort level then, and okay, there's an
Yeah.
entree into that. I'm thinking, so I know there's a bunch of different relationships, American companies and remote global workers. And by the way, these workers are everywhere. I have sourced from the Philippines. My remote workers have come from the Philippines, and I will continue to have a relationship with Philippine workers because of how much success we've had, and because I don't believe that in the roles I have, I need to diversify. Now, if I needed somebody who was like an accountant level, I might be willing to look outside of the Philippines. But generally speaking, I like that they have a Filipino One Focus culture. We have a US One Focus culture, and then communally, we have a One Focus culture. So that works for me. But you can get folks from anywhere in the world. My friends are hiring from the Middle East, from Russia, from the UK, from Central and South
Mhm.
America. I mean, anywhere, Africa. I know many people who have great employees out of Africa, and then of course all over Asia. And so there's a lot of different ways you can work for companies all over the world. You can do direct hire, you can do through an agency, you can even like work on these teams. What did you know about that? How did you think about what you wanted to do? And how did you make the decision you made? Just to be clear, I hired Lindsay through an agency. So we began with an agency relationship with our remote team member journey. We've since gone independent and direct hire. And so we did not direct hire Lindsay. She didn't find one focus. But how did you think about that? And how did you decide what you wanted?
So at first, I didn't really know of how to apply. I wasn't really the work from home job that I only know is ESL. It's English teaching. Because that is very common here in the Philippines back in 2018, 20, I would say 2016. Um, then I tried to join in groups, Facebook groups, and then I saw that there were actually agencies who are hiring different kind of roles, especially HR roles, because I also had a background with HR. And that was my initial target, like to work from home doing HR jobs, and that is what I did with my first work from home. Then after a while, it didn't work out for me. Like the company, not the role, but the company didn't really work out for me. Like the company culture and then the values that they have didn't really align of what I I I value. And then I left. And in January, I started looking again on Facebook groups, Facebook groups, and then I found this agency. Um, and then I got in. And then they
Let's
did
say you got in. You made an application to the agency to be
yes.
considered for roles that they had to hire for, right? So there was like a first step.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I didn't really apply for a specific role. They were kind of pulling, they were doing applicant pulling, and so I applied for whatever role that I may fit in with my resume. So I had a call, and they told me that I passed the initial screening, and then I will be interviewed by a client. And then back then they weren't really giving much details. I know very little of who the client is. Like I only know that it's a property management company and the role is for an executive assistant, and I believe that's it. They don't really give out like much information until I was interviewed. And I remember there was a panel interview with you, JLR, and back then it was David Morhart, our director of maintenance. And
That was nerve-wracking for us too, because and that's interesting. Did you understand compensation and basic terms of the employment prior to that interview? Did you even know you were interested in this?
well, I read the job description. I know that it's for an executive assistant role. They gave us a contract um, that we can review, but I didn't really know much more of the company, like where the company is. I didn't know that it's in
In what
Pennsylvania. I
country
didn't know.
we were in?
I know that's in the US, but I don't know what state.
So the hiring experience for us from our side was also so unusual. We had a debrief with the company who, in our case, property management company sourcing Filipino talent for US property management company. So that made them really expert. It wasn't hard to explain what we needed. They understood it. They went out and sourced for these three roles we were hiring for and brought us three candidates each. And we were provided you call them CVs. We call them resumes. We were provided your CVs. So we got to review that. And then it was a panel interview. So they said, what we like you to do is we're going to set up all three. I think it was even on Skype at the time. All three people, right? And we're going to bring them into the room one at a time. And you're going to have essentially a 10-minute interview with each of them. And so to understand, you knew nothing of us. We got to ask questions of you for 10 minutes. So we got a small look at you, but you're making this decision really blind. And to some extent, so are we. We were really
Yeah.
counting on the hiring agencies, uh, ability to pre-screen you and tell us that you're likely to be successful in working for us. And so, one thing I didn't understand is how am I going to do 3 10-minute interviews with these people and then make a clear decision? And I'll tell you, the experience for us on the panel was that it was so clear. At the end of that 30 minutes, when we had talked to 3 people, the 3 panelists, took our notes and then we like kind of shared them. We all agreed on all 3 roles who should be hired. It wasn't difficult for us, so we had a lot of confidence going in. I mean, did you really, because you didn't know much about us, you learned our name and
Yeah.
where we were in that
Uh-huh.
interview and a little bit of our personalities. How do you make that decision?
What do you mean? Like, how do I
Well, you
know
had
that?
that short little interview with us and you learned a little bit, and then you received an offer that said, "Oh, you've been selected. Would you like to accept?" How do you decide this is the company I want to work for? I mean, do you do a bit of internet research afterward to go, what is this company like?
Well, yeah, afterwards, after the interview, I already know who you are, so I know the company name, and I did a little bit of a research, and I saw what you do. And actually, during the interview, I just felt like the way you communicated during the interview, I felt like it's a. I didn't know that it's a good company, but at least the level of how you communicated, the way how you talked to me during the interview, I just knew that it would probably be a good fit, but I didn't know for sure. So I did research after that as well.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like the little bit of data you had checked the boxes it was able to check. I mean, of the little bit of signs you got. And of course, it's worked out because you've stuck
Yeah.
around and we've kept you around. This is a great
And
relationship. I want to talk about the technology. So, one thing that American companies, and when I talk to American entrepreneurs, real estate investors, and other kinds of entrepreneurs about bringing in talent, I always say they're befuddled. They're not pro, they're not against, they're just really confused. How does it work? Talk to me about the technology requirements for you as a work from home
mm,
employee and how you keep, by the way, you guys are always on with us. We get far less communication and power interruptions with you all than we do when our US employees work remotely. So, tell us about those requirements and what it takes for you. What are the requirements you need to meet? And is it hard to meet them?
at least for me, not because as I've said, I already had a prior work from home job before One Focus, but the agency had a requirement of you need to have your own workspace, so your own home office, and then second would be you need to have a laptop, at least i5 that time. Um, So i5 laptop and then noise canceling headset. And that at least your background should be clear of any things, so you no distractions. So at least you can have your own space wherein nobody can just go in when you have meetings. Yeah, and
Sure.
of course the internet connection should be at least I think they said it's about 10 Mbps. And then you should also have your uh, backup or alternative internet connection, power, backup source. And so those are the requirements.
So we had no idea what to expect, and the hiring agency had those requirements, and we just went with them, and they have worked really well for us. But I know that is not always the experience employers have. So I would recommend anybody looking to bring remote team members into their investing business or any other kind of business, pay attention to that when you're making your hire. And Lindsay, am I
Yeah,
correct? Typically, the responsibility for the expense of your computer, your home workstation, and your connectivity is the employee's expense, right?
that is right. Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about the differences between working for a US employer and a Filipino employer. And
Yeah.
so maybe some of the good things and some of the bad things. And I know you don't like to talk
Yeah.
about bad things. That's one of the great things about Filipinos is they're so dang positive, but maybe something that just isn't the best.
Well, let's say culturally. Culturally, I think communication is one because US people are more direct when it comes to giving feedback, communication, where in Filipinos tend to avoid disagreement or conflict, and we, as much as possible, try to look for like exhaust all resources before we ask question. we try as much as possible not to communicate like questions and try our best not to like disappoint someone. And so we try to keep quiet. So if you say something like directly, if you don't know Filipinos, you might think like something is off or something like that, but you have to know that culturally that is just how we are. Like we tend to avoid disagreement.
Yeah, you
So
never
that's one
say
thing.
no. Yeah, I always say, like,
Whenever
unless it's an enthusiastic yes, it's probably a no from the Filipinos. If you say, "Well, we'll try," or "I hope so," that is a no. That is a no.
and then of course there's the time zone. We'll know that. So time zone we work in the Philippines, your morning is our evenings. And then benefits also is different when it comes to medical benefit. I know that in the US, with your medical benefits, like mental or psychological, is also usually included. Here in the Philippines, if we get HMO, it's not included. It's only like the hospitalization, emergency care, like that. And another thing is 401k. I noticed that because we have 401k with One Focus, and that is not something usual in the Philippines. Um,
You guys don't have
Another
any
benefit,
tax advantaged ways to save for your retirement?
we have government mandated, but if you're a freelancer or a VA, you actually do voluntary contribution. So it's tied to a government agency. So when we retire, we can have like a pension, small amount, but I think that's what equivalent to 401k.
At One Focus, we're big proponents of having remote team members, global remote team members, because of the quality of work they do, the consistency it brings your business, their adherence to processes, their ability to be kind of tied to the desk versus if you're a real estate investor, you're out. You're out all the time. You're in a car, you're at properties. And the expense. Guys, it is less expense. The labor, I'm able to compensate these people at a level that is good for their, it is attractive to them. It incites great people to do great work. And so those are some of the benefits. And when I talk to other entrepreneurs about my enthusiasm for it, I always say they're not against it, they're not for it. They literally can't understand it. And Lindsay and I were talking during our morning huddle today about why that is. And she explained to me, you know, they're not only the people in the Philippines are not only generally bilingual between their native language and English, they're also culturally bilingual because, as she told me, more than half of the culture she consumes, TV, music, art, all of that comes from the US. And the US, they understand how we work. So it isn't surprising to them to work for a hard charging female boss who cusses and swears and says things really strongly or impulsively. She goes, I wasn't scared or intimidated by that. You're certainly not the first example of that I've seen. And why American entrepreneurs are befuddled is because we have zero visibility into other cultures.
Yeah.
Maybe we have some visibility into what we see on our programming, but it's never the great side of other cultures. This is like drug cartels and that sort of thing. So we're scared of other cultures. And so Lindsay and the other global team members that we have here at One Focus have this duality, this ability to work with and relate to not only their coworkers, but our residents, our vendors. I mean, guys, you have no idea how many people don't even realize Lindsay's not an American person, that she represents me so much out in the world. And it's hard for us to comprehend and understand. And that's why it's been so important for us at One Focus. We've made 2 trips now, but we're trying to make every other year trips where we send. The first year, myself and my husband went and we brought everybody in from around the Philippines to a central location and rented a villa and had a private chef and rented a catamaran and just did all this beautiful vacation stuff together because I'll talk about it from the value from my standpoint, and then I want to hear what Lindsay has to say. For me, it was that view into what is their life like? Who are they as people? All the things I don't get to know and understand and talk about with them, the laughs, the jokes, the relationship we got to build was so incredible for me. to value these people, understand them. And then I think for them, the employee retention's been huge. But I'll let Lindsay tell you, like, first of all, how unusual is it that your remote employer comes to your country? And what do you think the value of it is for the remote team members?
I Yeah, you were the first one to do that. You're
In your
actually the first one.
experience?
I think in my experience, you're the first client to visit here, and I think it shows how the company is committed to the remote team member. And also we felt that we are really valued because it's not cheap. I mean, it's not cheap to travel here, especially when you don't know what the other side of the world looks like. As you've said, you don't know. I'm not sure if you already knew that there's country named Philippines before us.
Oh,
Do you
I
even
knew there
know
was a
that?
country named the Philippines. I didn't know it was islands. I knew it was Asia. I knew it was Asia, but I didn't know what it was like at all. Nothing. Nothing.
Yeah, and so it shows us how committed you are and how you value us because you were willing to travel, um, not just say spend, but to travel to a country that you didn't know of. And so also it gave us like the sense of deeper connection because I felt like you were trying to understand how our culture is as well when you went here. And I think, um, I don't know if you would agree, but I think when you did the first trip, you then did realize and understand what I was talking about earlier, like how we communicate, like the difference of how we communicate, because you also saw other like Filipino people, how we are.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that w it's such a silly thing. I don't know if there's any significance to it, but we were in a car on that first trip, and there were 6 of you at the time. We had 6 remote team members, me and Dave, and every time one of you addressed me, you would, except for you, say "boss." So it would be boss or JSR because I
Mhm.
go by my initials at work for a long reason, but never by Jen. And I said to somebody, because it was boss, boss, boss. We were just excitedly talking, and I was hearing that. And I said, you guys have to know that if the people in the US knew that my team members literally called me boss, I would be looked at like the most crazy person. And we had this conversation. We're like, no, no, this is more comfortable for us. It is good that we get to use your initials. It is good that we get to use boss because for us, there isn't a comfort level in this. And I go, yeah, if my comfort level is being called Jen by absolutely everybody. But if it's not for you, we're going to let it go. We're going to let you do what you want to do and call us the way you want to call us. And that's totally fine with us. And I just never want to
Yeah.
make you guys uncomfortable. I'm so grateful for the value you all bring. Let's move it to this podcast is for investors, real estate investors who are doing too much on their own. Like they're like the people that are hiring us, right? If you're talking to them, you know they're overwhelmed. They can't find their leases. They made the decision to get out of this. So a person in that position could hire a management company like One Focus or could decide to operationalize and hire the kind of help that they need. And I tell them, if you feel like that's a calling you have, start with remote team members. That should be your first hire. So let's say a real estate investor makes that leap and either through an agency, and I have promo codes to give out to everybody to make that agency hire if you want to, or do a direct hire thing, search for yourself. There's websites to do that on. Um, when they hire that person, what is the person they're hiring going to need the most to have this great relationship you and I have figured out? What does that investor that who's going to employ them need to think about and do to make it be really successful?
I think, well, if they are hiring by agency, of course, they would have a contract then. But if they are thinking like doing a direct hire, number one is they should have a contract, set expectation, and make a clear job description. Because usually, one thing that clients make as a mistake is that they think that their VA or remote team member is a plug and play kind of worker. So they expect that without training. that the remote team member would know what to do exactly, what they need. So that's not how it is. So that goes to the second point. So first, have a contract. Second, I think it's best to have a proper training and onboarding. Like just um give them like who you are, what you expect of them, all the tools that they need, proper training and onboarding. Next would be patient, especially if it's your first time. I remember you were telling me during, I'm not sure if you remember, but I remember you telling me during the first months of us being together that I need to be patient and you are trying to be patient with me as well because we were your first hire and you were trying to figure out how to delegate and trying to figure out what I can and can't do given that the distance is like we were miles away. Like I remember you telling me, I didn't know you can do this. I didn't know you can do that. And so we did figure that out along the way. And so just try to be patient with each other. And then of course treat your team members as much as possible, same as if you have other US employees, that's very important because are we wanted to have a career with the company, not just a job. Um, and so we wanted to feel that we're included, and One Focus is really good at that. That's why I'm still here. And then I think the last one would be um, just invest with your RTM, just like what One Focus is doing. They are doing trips, investing, and One Focus also I think is doing like developmental, offering developmental. So they offer it the same with RTMs as they offer it to the US. So if there are courses, something educational that would help your RTMs to help more contribute to your business, you want to invest in that, that would be great too.
Yeah, when I think about the real estate investor who's underwater, who's really struggling, this is a tall order, but I want them to think about this. The value these people bring, the consistency, and at a really affordable cost, it is worth adjusting how you live and breathe here. So you talked a lot about training and onboarding, and in the episode I do with Jesse, our director of operations, we're going to break that down. But showing patience, showing a curiosity with this person, that has yielded me so much with you. Like I said, I'm embarrassed to say how little I thought people could do from the Philippines for my business. I really thought I was taking a huge risk. I see now I was way late to the game. I should have done it before. But when I didn't know you could do things, I was continually surprised, and it let me know I've got to cut you loose. So you are like, if you see graphics that are representing One Focus or Hold It with PM Jen, Lindsay did those. If anything gets changed on a website, Lindsay did it. If I need travel arrangements made, canceled, or changed, she does it. She has arranged all these retreats to the Philippines. I mean, and that's just like not even anything. Like the stuff she calls and does, like I'll have problems with the password manager software. She'll call and get it solved. I don't spend time doing those things anymore, and I can remain more in my unique ability. And to the real estate investor who's missing calls, whose schedule is a mess, who isn't disciplined in their time, adding a remote team member for all of those routine processes and admin tasks as a level one, guys. Level one is where we need to be. Okay. Um, let's talk a little bit about the risks to you in working for a US employer. I want US employers to understand what are the things their new global team members kind of afraid of happening.
So one thing that first comes in mind is mm, the ghost stories that I hear about remote team members working for weeks, submitting deliverables, projects, and then not getting paid at the end. It is more than we realize that a lot of remote team members, especially here in the Philippines, there are a lot of forums and groups that talks about employers or clients that are ghosting remote team members after projects.
And there's no recourse, right?
Yeah, the only thing that you can do is again have contract, do research, check, forums because virtual assistants, they share experiences. They usually post in forums like, hey, this client did this did not pay me. And so you at least do a research of that company. If you know the client's name, the company's name, you can check their website and such. And also um, try to negotiate bi-weekly or weekly pay, or at least 50% after deliverable, like 30% after doing a certain percentage of work. And so that would really be helpful and avoid like trial projects or trial session. That really sounds like a red flag.
Yeah, and there's, by the way, there's the same fear on our end, right? So the fears around
Yeah,
money
for
for
sure.
us are that I know one employer who bought a workstation. So before they talked to me, they purchased a computer and a connection and a battery and
Yeah,
all this stuff.
yeah,
And then, of course, the employee didn't work out. And there's no recourse for an
yeah,
American employer to get money or anything like that back.
yeah.
And so, anyway, the risk is shared. Another thing we fear on our end, and I know I asked you for your fears, but now I'm butting in with mine, is our personal information. So I'm sharing, again,
Mm,
we're programmed here in the US that everybody
right.
international is trying to scam us, right? They're trying to get our details and scam us. And I'll share it. Every single one of my RTMs has an American Express card on my platinum account. Like they are empowered to make, and they are actively making purchases for my company. Talk to me about that. Like either what you've seen us do, what happens when Americans like lock you out of things, and what's the risk, and how do you guys think about that? If I expect you to do work for me, but don't empower you with the information, maybe I was extra cautious around company information and my information, and I kind of handicap you from doing the work.
Yes, I know someone. It didn't happen to me personally, but it happened to someone I know because her client is a financial advisor, and so there were a lot of bank statements for the client, and he was kind of hesitant to provide the information. So it was really challenging for the remote team member, not having that level of trust from the client to do her job. Because I think first, when you have your interview, you need to be clear um, with what the job entails. You need to have at least the contract should have, of course, confidentiality agreement. And in One Focus, um, we have like the security system, right?
The password
They call that
manager.
password manager. That is one thing, and then we have the Trend Micro. We also have that um, for security, and yeah, I think it really just boils down to the level of trust, and the level of um, commitment that you have with each other. Of course, that is not like an overnight thing. I guess you can start with a task that is less risky, and then as you progress, as you build that trust, and then you can progress to a task that requires more level of confidentiality, I think.
Yeah, I mean, at this point with Lindsay, she's the admin on several of our accounts because she's doing things in my stead. And so, one thing I think about when people tell me that, oh, I can't possibly use these people because I'm, again, a financial manager. In our case, we have bank accounts, properties, tenant information, owner information, all kinds of information, financial information. Here's the truth of the matter. You need to get good at how the tech works. So you mentioned the password manager. Now, what that means is I can share access to accounts and not actually share the login information or the password. So I can share a password to a site with Lindsay and she doesn't actually have it, but the system, if she puts in her proper credentials, will allow her to use it. Now I can decide with two-factor authentications if I need
Yeah.
notice every time that happens or not. Within the softwares, we've locked out actually most everybody from the most crucial stuff, right? Bank accounts, social security numbers. Again, though, we've chosen that Lindsay, we have this relationship with, enough time and experience with, and she is doing new employee onboarding. So she is seeing bank accounts, she is seeing social security numbers, and that is something we're trusting that we are okay with at this point. And so, you have to use the systems at play to make sure. And by the way, they all have Amex cards, and I have controls on all those Amex cards. There's a very limited amount of damage anybody in this company could do to me should they get a wild hair. Okay, so you guys are worried about getting ghosted. We're worried about having our information stolen. Is there anything else you guys are worried about? Like, I would be worried about, what if I got a mean boss?
Yeah, as I've mentioned earlier, there are clients who think that their VAs are plug and play. And so there's really a lot of challenge when it comes to expectations of what the VA should and should not do, what the job description entails, because sometimes some clients get a little bit abusive of what the remote team member should be doing, especially there's no clear boundaries at first that was discussed. And so there were times I saw in the forums that, okay, at first this client told me that my job would be taking phone calls, doing emails, like customer support, and then later on she asked me to do bookkeeping, and that is fine as long as you communicate that with your client. Of course, that would also mean, I believe that would also mean like having extra compensation, at least having that negotiation with the client around that compensation as your task ads, whatever that is. Um, and so, yeah, there are clients who expect that remote team member will just take and take without being compensated properly. And so, also, there are instances that I'm not sure if I should, like, racist, maybe? Am I
Oh,
allowed to
yeah.
say?
Yeah, I
Like,
know you're nervous to bring it up, but you're right. And we've encountered that with vendors and
mm,
clients who've interacted with you all. Again, we don't announce that the person they're speaking with at One Focus is living in the
yeah,
Philippines and working from there. But when they figure it out, some people are, wow, that's so interesting and nice. And other people are not.
yeah,
Other people can be a little nasty. And I know you hesitate to bring it up, but I'll speak strongly about it. It is a very real thing. And it was a very real thing I was afraid of when I knew I was bringing you guys on. I was afraid of how people would react, how the employees would react, how my colleagues and, friends in the business community would react. I have to say, it's all been really mostly positive, and the negative has been so insignificant. The benefits so outweigh any of the negatives, including other people's opinion of me, that I don't care. I don't care about the ones who were negative. That's interesting. So it happens, and you guys talk about it. It sounds like you share about it. If
yeah.
company
It happened
ABC,
to me. I'm not sure if I shared to you, but it happened to me. Um, it was a previous client of ours. He's no longer our client. And of course, I do take phone calls, and there are some clients who are very sensitive of my accent, of not just me, but of course the other team members' accent. You can say, or you can tell that I am not a Native American based on my accent. And so they would sometimes say, "What did you say? I don't understand what you're talking about." Or I believe that I'm doing my best to communicate. It's just that I think that they don't want to try to understand because of the accent. And they would say straight up to you that, "Yeah, can I talk to somebody else because I don't understand your accent. I don't understand." And that is really one thing that I'm thankful for with One Focus, because One Focus really stands up for their RTMs, and we never felt hidden. Our faces are on the website. If you go on One Focus website, you can see Filipino faces on the website. So
yeah, I didn't do that right away. I'll admit I was a little nervous about it right away. I'm so convicted in what I do now that I'm like, oh
mm,
yeah, not me, bro. You're right. And that is something in rural America that still happens. In cities, there are many people with accents. It would not be unusual to speak to any member of a company and even have legitimate difficulty understanding them. But in rural America, um, there's a client we're trying to sign right now, and their resident and their property is Indian. The family is Indian, and they warned me, "You're not gonna be able to understand this guy. Nobody can understand him. He barely speaks English." And I said, "Well, okay. I don't have problems in central Pennsylvania understanding even our immigrant population. So far, knock wood, it's gone okay." So we go to the property, and I am hearing and understanding both of the adult residents perfectly fine. They sound like all the other Indian people that I went to business school with. And when I left, I said, Are those the people you have difficulty understanding? And they're like, yeah, I can't understand a thing they say. And I'm like, don't worry. One focus will understand them just fine. It isn't, you're right. It's a resistance. It's an active resistance to the accent that
Yeah.
is, it happens though so little. One thing we did in the beginning that I would advise a new real estate investor who's going to work with somebody from anywhere in the world. In the beginning, I was really fascinated with showing you guys videos of our offices, of our world.
Yeah.
I wanted to see videos of where you all lived. You were less apt to share those with me, but I wanted you to know, what do our offices look like? What does it
Yeah.
look like where we eat our lunch? What do our homes look like? That's one thing. Doing videos of homes, video tours and inspections. I love, because you all's homes are different. The finishes are
Yeah.
different, the features are different, the construction is different. I wanted you all to see, what does it look like when it's snowy and windy here, when it's raining, when it's
Mhm.
sunny. And we do a lot of sharing of that because I want you to feel included. For this 8 or 9 hours a day, you're on the clock with one focus. I want you to feel like you're in the Pennsylvania company. You are doing and living the same kind of life as us. And so I think it's worth it to invest in your team member by just sharing
Yeah.
your life, your family, your
I
work. What
agree.
does it look like? And take the time to talk to them about it. Take the time to talk to them about
I
your
agree.
experiences and how that goes. I want to dig into one thing you talked about, which is, in order to be successful, to bring a remote team member into the business, you have to have good processes and things set up.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you. You guys came in, we were a lot more elementary in our processes. We kicked it into high gear on processes because we wanted to bring you all in, and we knew that was something we had to do. Most real estate investors do not have like a late rent process, a move out process, a move in process. They're flying by the seat of their pants. So we're going to be realistic here. I'm an investor. I have 40 doors. And I've made my first hire, and I hired Lindsay to be my property management assistant. And I go, listen, Lindsay, I know you need processes, but here's the deal. I don't have any. And what I'm always told, what I was told by Jay when I interviewed him for the other episode of this, he said, these people, your remote team members, will write your process for you. I want to talk about that. You've done some writing of processes for us. Is
Yeah.
that realistic for a remote team member to come in and meet with the investor and work together with them to write the processes that they're going to follow?
Yeah, I think that it's doable, but again, as I've said, you need to be patient with each other. You cannot expect a remote team member to write a process without you communicating what you want to happen. Like, what is your expectation? What are the outcomes that you wanted to see? And so from there, the remote team member can help you write a process, again, for whatever it is that you want to have.
Yeah, that's what I would encourage the real estate investor to do. And I'll give you the hit list right now of processes you need to think through, and at the very least, make a checklist. Checklists are not processes, but they're a good start to think about all the things that need to happen. So everything that needs to happen in a move in, from I've got the property ready, I got to find a tenant, to market it, take applications, run applications, select a tenant, onboard a tenant, and then ensure that that's successful. There's a lot that needs to happen. So real estate investors, sit down and think about that. Start making a
Yeah,
checklist. Same thing with your move out process. Okay. That's a big one. You're
right.
doing that all the time, and there's a lot of components. And when you mess it up, it has big consequences, right? Um, how to approve an application and list a property. That seems like a really good one. And then all the things that are going to happen monthly. So whether that's
Yeah,
paying invoices, receiving rent, pursuing late rent, um, what other things? We do reconciliations every month. We reconcile trade accounts. So all those things that
yeah,
happen monthly, start thinking through those processes. And you're right. The remote team member is going to do that first one, is going to do a big lift and help you get those first
yeah.
processes written. But it's
I think
it's important you take the time.
I think what the RTM can help is when it comes to the tools integration, like research. Let's say, for example, you wanted to do um, screening of applicants. You can ask your remote team member to, hey, I wanted to have a tool that can do this, that, and we can screen and do this. And then you can ask your team member, can you do a research of a platform, of a software that could help us do that and have that kind of result? And then I think that's where our TM or remote team member would be helpful when it comes to presenting you, giving you options of the software that could help you with your processes.
A great example of when we did that was when we decided, after you were with us, we added a fleet. Remember, we bought all the vehicles and we had to start tracking them and maintaining them and all the things. And we decided we wanted like a fleet management software. And you and I talked about what it is I wanted. And you went out and did the research and presented to me the options. And I'd ask questions. And if I was set to me to figure that out, I would not have made as good a decision anywhere as quickly. And we would not have, I would have not sat down and actually started using it. We use it, we get a ton of value in it. And you've been the head of that whole thing the whole time. I want to talk really practically about how to pay you guys, because that's another thing. All right, I
Hmm.
hired so and such country for so much an hour. And at the end of the week, I owe them $300. How do I get my 300 US shekels to wherever they're going? What sort of options exist that you're aware of to get money from abroad and to abroad?
So there are a couple of options. There's PayPal, there's Payoneer, we have Wise. But I think based on my experience of using all of those platforms, the best one is Wise because it's faster and easy to use. Like the remote team members don't have to set up their own Wise account. You can just do like the client has their Wise account and then the remote team member would give you their local bank account and you can transfer that way.
So we'll put some links to those things that we've mentioned in the information here on this podcast. But I'll tell you this, it was very confusing to me. That was one of the reasons I wanted an agency in the beginning is I was very intimidated at the financials of it. And after going direct hire and doing the research, I found that I shouldn't have been as intimidated as I was. And I don't
Mm.
know if this is recent or not, but there is a treaty that exists between the US and the Philippines that makes it very easy. I am permitted to just simply send the wages that are earned to the employee, and the employee is responsible in their country for paying their taxes. They do not have to file US tax returns. This is a deductible expense for me on my end. This is all legitimate and above board. I don't have to worry about the government coming around and being mad about all of this. This is perfectly fine. Check each country with your CPA or however you do that. But I do use Wise and it is super easy. I just put the money in the account. It is very low transaction fees. Like I put money in each week. I'm paying about $2.50 to put money in each week. And then I'll pay my 5 employees directly each and every week. And I love paying them weekly. They love being paid weekly. They used to be paid, was it every 4 weeks or every month? Was that how, when
Well,
you were an agency hire?
we used to be paid every 4 weeks.
Yeah. So they used to get paid every 4 weeks when they were working via the agency. And when we did our direct hire, we pay our US employees weekly. Again, laborious, but the employees love it. And so we do that. And now we've got our remote team members on that same weekly schedule. Again, super affordable and Wise. Doesn't cost me anything to send them the money in Wise. It's at today's exchange rates. That exchange rate risk is the burden of the employee. They determine though whether they receive the money in US dollars or in Filipino pesos. They can do that. That's up to them. And yeah, it's really easy and quick. And I actually have a friend here locally who has remote team members from all over the world. He's working with people from like 10 different countries and he's sending money to all of them via Wise very quickly and easily. So, Lindsay, I want to thank you. I know doing this is outside of your typical comfort zone, but working for an American company, you do all kinds of things that are outside your typical comfort zone. And because you're in control of the edit, you agreed to do this with me. Thank you so much for letting our listeners know what your experience is like working for this American company. And I hope investors open up their mind to this, into this opportunity, and maybe explore getting a remote team member. I
Yeah.
think you should do it with Better Who. Information about them in the content down below this podcast. But listen, use PM Gen for $500 off. I hope you will continue to buy and hold forever and ever. And in order to maintain the life you want, you might have to add some team members. And I think global team members are a great place to start. Until next time, holders, see ya. Lindsay's such a dear for sharing with us so candidly. And it's been my goal in this to share with you candidly and transparently my experience working with remote team members, how I'm being so successful at it, because for those of you out there who aim to make this a business for yourself, you will have to figure out the systems and processes that allow you to run this as a business and not just something you do and take up all your time doing. And so I believe remote team members should be your first hire in your investment business. If you want to talk about that, send me an email. I'd love to chat with you about it, maybe make some content about it. But that's my hot take here, is that this should be the first hire you make. All right. Wondering how you're going to do this and afford this? Well, you're going to use code PMGen at betterwho.com. When you do their hiring, there's a package. You'll get $500 off that package when you use code PMGen. And when it comes time to pay those remote team members to move money seamlessly across the world, quickly, safely, and efficiently, and by the way, for not a lot of money, wisE.com, WISE.com. Make your first fee-free transfer using the link in the information below this podcast. All right. I hope I have the next episodes queued up right away, but we're going to continue with the How To Season 3 next week. Probably. Next week, give me a break. It's the end of the year. It might be the holidays. All right. I'll get to you when I get to you. You're still not paying anything for this, right? All right. Winky wink. Bye.